You are now forced to drag your father to court to prove that you are his biological daughter. You appear in court believing there is no way you are Ms. Lewis's father. You are not her dad.
Yes, Your Honor.
They say a father's love is forever. But what happens when the man who raised you, protected you, and called you his little girl, looks you in the eyes one day and says, "I'm not your father"? For Margaret Lewis, that nightmare became reality. And now, after decades of silence and pain, she's back not as a child, but as a woman determined to prove the truth in paternity court. Margaret sat trembling, her voice shaking as she spoke. "I was his little girl. I loved him more than anything. But one day, when I was 13, he gathered everyone together and told me I wasn't his daughter." The man she spoke of, Mr. Palmer, sat across from her, calm, emotionless, his hands folded neatly on the podium. He didn't deny it. He said, "Yes, I told her that, because I always knew she wasn't my child." For Margaret, that moment, the one where her entire world collapsed, still burned in her memory. She said softly, "I remember everything. We were at his place of business and he called me and my siblings together. He looked right at me and said, 'You're not my daughter.'" At that time, she was just a child. Confused. Devastated. Her grandmother tried to comfort her, saying that Mr. Palmer was simply unsure, that she looked just like him. But nothing could erase the pain of hearing those words from the man she called Daddy. Before that day, Margaret's childhood had been full of memories, the kind that every daughter holds dear. She spent her summers with him, going to the farm, laughing, riding in the truck, doing all the things daughters do with their fathers. She said, "He was my hero. I never doubted for a second that I was his." But all of that changed with one sentence. After that day, she stopped visiting. 4 years passed before she saw him again. She said, "When he told me that, I just couldn't go back. I didn't understand. He'd always been my dad, and then suddenly I wasn't his anymore." Mr. Palmer's explanation came decades later. He said, "I raised her because I was being kind. Her mother and I had another daughter together, and I wasn't going to do for one child what I wouldn't do for the other. But I always knew she wasn't mine." To him, it was simple. To Margaret, it was devastating. When asked how his relationship with her mother began, Mr. Palmer's voice softened slightly. He said, "We were inseparable at first. I loved her. We were going to get married, but people started telling me I was a fool, that she was seeing another man." He said there was a day he'd never forget, when he saw her with another man in a pink-canned white Ford parked outside her home. He said, "I saw her lying across the seat, her legs sticking out of the car. That's when I knew she'd been cheating." Margaret shook her head. "My mother told me that wasn't true. She said she was pregnant with me at that time, and that she only went with that man to visit her dying mother. That's all." But the damage was done. That image, whether true or not, planted doubt in Mr. Palmer's mind, and it never left. From that day forward, he convinced himself that Margaret was another man's child. Even as he continued to raise her, feed her, and call her his own, deep down, he said, he always knew the truth. Years later, he finally told her. And when he did, he didn't whisper it in private. He announced it to everyone. "I wanted to get it out in the open," he said plainly. "I thought it was time she knew." But for Margaret, that moment didn't bring closure, it broke her. She said, "I begged him to tell me why. My mother never asked him for anything. He didn't have to raise me, so why tell me that? Why take that love away?" Even now, decades later, she still carried the pain. She said, "I wanted him to walk me down the aisle when I got married. He didn't. I wanted him there when my son was born. He was. I just wanted my dad." Her voice cracked as she continued. "I have 5 daughters and 1 son. I wanted my dad to know them, to be part of their lives. That's why I came back. Even though he said I wasn't his, I wanted my kids to know their grandfather before it's too late." When asked why he was so sure, Mr. Palmer reached into his folder and pulled out old military papers. He said, "Because I was drafted to Vietnam in May of 1968. I didn't come home for almost 10 months. She was born in September 1969. The math doesn't add up." He looked at the papers as if they were proof enough. "I was gone," he said firmly. "There's no way she could be mine." Margaret listened, shaking her head. "My mother told me he was home. He'd come back on leave. And he was seeing another woman then, too. That's why he started denying me." The judge asked if Mr. Palmer remembered that. He admitted, "Yes, I came home on leave once, but I wasn't with her mother then. We weren't together anymore." Then a shocking detail emerged. Margaret revealed she had a sibling, another child born to Mr. Palmer and his wife, just 8 days after her own birth. She said, "My brother was born September 14, 1969. I was born September 6, 1969, 8 days apart. If he was there to conceive my brother, he was there to conceive me." The courtroom gasped. The judge confirmed it. "I have a birth certificate here," she said, "for another child born to Mr. and Mrs. Jesse Palmer, dated September 14, 1969. Then she looked at Mr. Palmer. "If you were there to father that child, how could you have been away at war when Margaret was conceived?" He hesitated. "I probably came home on leave," he said softly, "but I wasn't with her mother at that time. I know what I know." Margaret's brother, Jesse Williams, took the stand. He said, "I was there that day he told her she wasn't his daughter, but I believe she is. She looks just like him. And if he was home to conceive my brother, then he was home to conceive her." Margaret nodded. "We're 8 days apart. There's no way around that. He knows he's my father." Then came the moment that defined the case. The DNA results. Everyone held their breath as the envelope was opened. In the case of Lewis versus Palmer, when it comes to 46-year-old Margaret Lewis, the judge paused, letting the silence fill the room. "It has been determined by this court, Mr. Palmer, you are her father." The room erupted in emotion. Margaret burst into tears, covering her face. She whispered, "I knew it. I always knew it." Mr. Palmer stood still, staring at the paper in disbelief. For years he had carried guilt, doubt, and pride, and now all of it crumbled with one sentence. Margaret turned to him, tears streaming down her face. She said, "Now you can't say it anymore. No more, we've got the proof. You're my daddy." The courtroom fell silent as she continued. "I think he did this because he never knew his own father. I think the pain he carried, he passed down to me, but I forgive him because I never stopped loving him." The judge's voice softened. "You just broke a generational curse," she said. "You were denied, but you still chose love. That's what makes you stronger than what hurt you." Margaret smiled through her tears. "I just wanted him to know, no matter what he said, he's always been my daddy." And for the first time in decades, the man who once denied her didn't say another word. Some people come to paternity court to find the truth. Others come because the truth is threatening to take away everything they love. That's what brought Mr. Hinz to the courtroom, a man who raised a little boy as his own for 5 years, only to be told by his ex, Ms. Walters, that he might not be the father after all. He said quietly, "That boy is my whole world. I don't care what anyone says, I'm his daddy. But if I've been lied to all this time, I deserve to know." Ms. Walters, sitting across from him, didn't deny it. She said, "Yes, I told him there's a chance he might not be the father, but I'm not the villain here. I was honest, just not soon enough." Their story began almost 7 years ago. They met at work, two young people who fell fast, moved in together, and built a life they thought would last forever. Everything seemed perfect until the argument started. He worked long hours. She felt neglected. He accused her of flirting with other men. She said he didn't trust her. And then, one night after a big fight, Ms. Walters walked out and didn't come home for 2 days. A few weeks later, she found out she was pregnant. At first, she believed the baby was Mr. Hins. She said, "We were together most of the time. There was only one night when I wasn't home. I didn't think that one night would change everything." But now, years later, with the child growing older, the resemblance, she said, didn't match. She said softly, "Every time I looked at him, I started seeing someone else's face. That's when I told Hins the truth." The day she told him, he thought she was joking. He said, "She came to me crying, saying she wasn't sure if he was mine. I laughed because I didn't believe her. We'd been through everything together. Why would she wait 5 years to say this?" But then she showed him an old photo of the man she had been with during those 2 missing days. He said the resemblance was there. The same smile, the same eyes. My stomach dropped. I didn't know what to think. Still, despite the doubt, Mr. Hins stayed. He said, "I couldn't walk away. That little boy called me daddy before he could even talk properly. I wasn't about to destroy that." He paid for school, took the child to doctor appointments, and even coached his little leg team. He said, "I didn't just love him, I built my whole life around him." But the uncertainty started eating at him from the inside. He said, "I'd look at him and wonder, am I his real dad, or just the man raising another man's child?" Ms. Walters said she didn't mean to hurt him. "I was scared," she said. "I didn't want to lose him. I thought if I just stayed quiet, everything would be okay." She admitted that she had told the other man, Mr. Reed, about the pregnancy back then, but that he didn't want to be involved. She said, "He told me to do whatever I wanted. He said he wasn't ready to be a father." Now, 5 years later, paternity court had called all three, Mr. Hins, Ms. Walters, and Mr. Reed, to find the truth once and for all. Mr. Reed walked in calmly, saying, "I didn't come here to steal anyone's child, but if that boy is mine, I have a right to know." The air in the courtroom turned heavy. 3 adults, 1 little boy, and 1 truth that could change all their lives forever. The judge asked Ms. Walters directly, "When exactly did you realize there might be another possibility?" She said, "When my son turned 4. He started looking more and more like Mr. Reed. That's when I couldn't ignore it anymore." Mr. Hins shook his head. "You mean to tell me you waited 4 years, 4 birthdays, 4 Christmases, 4 years of me loving that child before you told me this?" She nodded, crying. "I didn't want to destroy your heart, but keeping it secret was destroying mine." Mr. Reed spoke up. He said, "I'm not trying to cause chaos, but if he's my son, I'll take full responsibility. I'll do what I didn't do back then." Mr. Hins glared at him. "You had 5 years to care. You didn't. Don't walk in here now and act like a hero." Mr. Reed replied, "You're right, I wasn't ready then, but I am now." The judge silenced the arguing and said, "This isn't about who deserves credit. This is about who deserves the truth." Then she asked both men, What will you do if the results say you're not the father? Mr. Hinz swallowed hard. He said, I'll still be in his life. That little boy is my heart, but I'll never forgive her for letting me believe a lie for so long. Mr. Reed said, if I'm not the father, I'll step back, but if I am, I'll step up. Finally, it was time. The DNA envelope was brought in. The room went silent. Ms. Walters clutched her hands together, tears in her eyes. The judge read slowly. In the case of Hinz versus Walters and Reed, when it comes to 5-year-old Noah Walters, everyone leaned forward. The results reveal that Mr. Reed is not the father. A deep sigh escaped the courtroom. Mr. Reed nodded quietly. It's okay, he said. I just wanted to know. Then the judge turned to the next page. As for Mr. Hinz, Ms. Walters began shaking. He closed his eyes. It has been determined by this court that Mr. Hinz is the biological father. The room exploded in emotion. Mr. Hinz covered his face, crying silently. He said softly, "That's my boy, that's my son." Ms. Walters sobbed uncontrollably. "I'm sorry," she said over and over. "I'm so sorry." He looked at her and said, "You took 5 years from me. Don't take one more minute. Let's move forward." She nodded, still crying. "I will." The judge smiled faintly. She said, "This court has seen heartbreak, lies, and doubt, but this is love. Love that never gave up, even when it had every reason to." After the episode aired, the show received a heartfelt update. Mr. Hinz wrote, "We're doing great. I finally have peace. Every time my son says daddy, it means something even deeper now. We've started fresh, me, him, and his mom. We're trying to rebuild trust one day at a time." He ended with, "The truth didn't break us, it freed us." The narrator closed the segment with a reflection that resonated deeply with viewers everywhere. DNA doesn't just reveal bloodlines. It reveals loyalty. Because the ones who stay through the doubt are the ones who were family all along. But paternity court wasn't done yet. Because the final case of the day would bring one of the most shocking family revelations the courtroom had ever seen. A young woman stood before the judge, not to find her father, but to prove that the man who had been raising her might actually be her grandfather. A tangled web of generations, secrets and lies, and one truth that would change 3 lives forever. Some secrets stay buried for decades, but when they finally rise to the surface, they don't just change lives, they redefine them. For Kendra Moore, this wasn't just about finding her father. It was about untangling a web of lies so deep, she didn't even know who she truly was anymore. She said quietly, "I grew up calling him Dad, but now people are telling me he might actually be my grandfather." Her voice trembled as she looked toward the man sitting across from her, Mr. Moore, a quiet, stern figure in his late 60s who had raised her since birth. He didn't flinch. He said, "I've always been honest. I raised her like my own, but her mama knows the truth. I didn't do nothing wrong. I just stepped up when no one else would." Kendra shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You told me my mom was my sister. You told me my grandmother was my mom. I didn't find out the truth until I was 15. You lied my whole life." The courtroom went silent. She said, "My birth certificate has your name as my father, but my aunt told me that my real mother was your daughter, and that you signed my papers to cover it up." Mr. Moore sighed deeply. "I did what I had to do," he said. "My daughter was 16 when she got pregnant. I wasn't going to let the whole town talk. So yes, I signed the papers, but I didn't hurt nobody. I protected my family. Kendra's voice rose. You didn't protect me. You stole my truth. I grew up thinking my mother was my sister, and now I don't even know who I am. Her words hung heavy in the air, full of grief, confusion, and anger. The judge asked him directly, Mr. Moore, are you saying you are not her biological father? He nodded. I'm saying what I've always said. I raised her, I love her, but I didn't father her. Her mama did wrong, but I stood in the gap. The judge then turned to Kendra's mother, Ms. Lisa Moore, who sat silently beside her daughter, avoiding eye contact. When asked to speak, her voice cracked. I was young, I was scared, I didn't know how to tell her. Daddy told me he would take care of everything. He said no one needed to know. The truth began to unfold. Kendra was the child of a teenage pregnancy, one hidden behind a wall of family secrecy. Lisa said, I wanted to tell her so many times, but Daddy said it would ruin her life. He said it was better she thought I was her sister. Kendra stared at her mother in disbelief. You watched me call you sis for 15 years. You let me grow up celebrating Father's Day with the man who was really my grandfather. How could you do that? Lisa sobbed. I thought I was doing what was best for you. The judge asked Mr. Moore what role he played in this deception. He said calmly, I didn't lie, I just let her believe what she believed. She had a good life, didn't she? She had food, school, love. That's all that mattered. Kendra shook her head. That's not love. Love is truth. You gave me everything but honesty. As painful as it was, Kendra said this wasn't the only secret that had surfaced. She explained that when she started asking questions about her birth, people in the family started whispering about another man, a family friend named Raymond, who had been close to her mother around the time she was conceived. She said everyone said he used to come by the house all the time. I didn't think much of it, but when I started asking, people went quiet. That's when I realized there was more to the story. Raymond was brought to court to face the truth. He was nervous, his voice shaky. I didn't know she was mine, he said. Lisa never told me she was pregnant. If I'd known, I would have been there. I didn't find out until a few months ago when Kendra reached out. The room was tense. 2 men, 1 truth, and a daughter who had been trapped in the middle her whole life. Kendra said softly, all I want is to know who my real father is. I'm tired of lies. I'm tired of family secrets. I just want to know where I come from before I start my own family. Her mother cried quietly beside her, whispering, I'm sorry. Finally, the judge opened the envelope, the one piece of paper that could bring decades of confusion to an end. In the case of Moore versus Raymond, when it comes to 28-year-old Kendra Moore, everyone leaned forward. The judge continued, it has been determined by this court that Mr. Raymond is the biological father. Kendra gasped, tears immediately filling her eyes. She looked at Raymond, whispering, I knew it, I felt it. Her mother covered her face, sobbing uncontrollably. Mr. Moore sat still, his expression blank, a mix of pride, guilt, and regret. The judge spoke softly. The truth may hurt, but it also heals. Mr. Moore, you protected your family, but protection without truth becomes a prison, and Kendra has lived in that prison her whole life. Kendra turned to her grandfather. I don't hate you, she said, but I'll never understand why you couldn't just tell me. I would have loved you either way. For the first time, Mr. Moore's eyes filled with tears. He said, I didn't want you to be ashamed of where you came from. I wanted you to have a chance at a normal life. Maybe I went about it wrong, but I did it out of love." She nodded softly, then loved me enough to tell me the truth from now on. After the results, Kendra hugged her biological father for the first time. It was awkward, emotional, raw, but real. She said, "I've been searching for this hug my whole life." Raymond whispered, "And I've been waiting for it." The judge closed the hearing with words that cut straight to the heart. Family isn't about perfection, it's about truth. Lies may protect you for a season, but they always leave a wound that only honesty can heal. A few months later, Paternity Court received an update. Kendra wrote, "I'm still healing, but for the first time I know who I am. I've started building a relationship with my biological father, and my grandfather and I are rebuilding too. I've learned that family isn't about who lied, it's about who stayed." She added, "The truth didn't ruin my life, it gave me one." The narrator's closing voice echoed softly over a shot of Kendra hugging both men, her father and her grandfather. The generations finally united in truth. Sometimes the truth takes everything apart, but only so it can be built again, stronger, freer, and real.